Not every stadium can have a singular, unimpeachable name like Lambeau, Yankee, Soldier, or Fenway. We no longer let a stadium's name speak for itself, with most teams selling the naming rights to the highest bidder in exchange for a few extra $1 million every year. Most teams make wise, informed decisions as to who gets the right to have their name in bold lettering outside their home. Others, well, they've made decisions that don't age quite so well. Some names look bad in hindsight, and some were bad decisions from the get-go. Today, we're looking at 5 of the worst stadium naming shams in sports history, and that's coming up right after this. If the Jets and the Giants can win a game, surely things can always get better. What is life if you're not constantly growing and improving? And that's what Raycon has done, introducing the everyday earbuds, which have an improved rubber oil look and feel, which is silky smooth and snug. They also up the playtime to 8 hours and the battery life to 32. Guess what? There's a built-in mic to take calls. They are half the cost of other premium audio brands. And here's the best part. They come with a 45-day happiness guarantee. I love wearing mine in the gym while I'm editing. I mean, they are named perfectly because I literally wear these every day. So after this video, head on over to buyraycon.com/5points and get 15% off your Raycon purchase. Again, click the link below and go to buyraycon.com/5points and get 15% off your order. Brought to you by Raycon. It's somewhat fitting that a team as dysfunctional as the Sacramento Kings would have named their arena after a product just as defective. After the sham of the 2002 Western Conference Finals derailed a championship-caliber team, the franchise lost its course, last making the playoffs in the 2005-2006 season. The deal with Arco ran out, and in its stead emerged Power Balance LLC, a company that sold so-called energy bracelets that they claimed helped to center one's body and mind using holographic technology.
What we've been able to do is harness naturally occurring frequencies and program them into a Mylar hologram to help improve your balance, your strength, and your flexibility.
Whatever the hell that means. Upon further review, the bracelets did absolutely nothing. Independent studies found that the armbands served as merely placebos, or as they might have called it in the old days, snake oil. Nobody with a brain saw that coming. Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, was a major critic of Power Balance, calling it a scam and a joke on his show, The Shark Tank. In 2010, the Australian government basically forced Power Balance to admit their product was a sham, offering full refunds to anyone that purchased a bracelet. It stands to reason that the Maloof brothers, professional douchebags that tried to con Sacramento out of their team altogether, would align themselves with junk science. Fortunately, the name Power Balance Pavilion only lasted from March of 2011 to October 2012, when they upgraded to Sleep Train Arena. If you were trying to find a company not to name your stadium after, Enron would be right at the top of the list alongside Halliburton, Nestle, and the Weinstein Company. Let's do a quick overview on Enron. They were an energy company based out of Houston that took off in the 80s and 90s before a little accounting scandal that dropped the price of a share of the company from over $90 to mere pennies. That's really oversimplifying it. Let me make it even more simple. A bunch of rich assholes stole their employees' pensions and retirement plans and f***ed everyone over in the name of greed. Enron filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2011. That cost the company $11 billion. And yes, that was after the Houston Astros had put the name Enron on their new stadium that opened in 2000. Shortly after, the Astros bought back the naming rights for a little over $2 million and proceeded to change the name to Minute Maid Park. Yeah, nobody hates lemonade. It's a PR masterstroke right after you've been humiliated by an oil company that hid its financial woes in order to manipulate its Wall Street price and lie to stockholders. How do you f*** up oil? Though, when you really get down to it, based on the events of 2017 and beyond, maybe the Astros should be sponsored by a lying, cheating company like Enron. It's only slightly worse than calling it simply Astro Stadium. Today, it's known as M&T Bank Stadium. But for a brief moment in the glorious .com boom of the late 90s, the Ravens' home field was known as PSINet Stadium. What the hell is that, you might be wondering? PSINet was one of the first companies to sell internet connectivity, beginning in the late 1980s. But just being first to do something doesn't make you the best. PSINet started to face increasing competition by the mid-90s, and while their name held some credibility, their tactics were questionable, and their profits didn't match the company's name recognition. By the time the company paid $100 million for the rights to have their name on the Ravens' new stadium, PSINet was missing earning estimates and beginning to fall apart. In 2001, their stock fell below $1, and PSINet filed for bankruptcy, like other companies, in what was known as the bursting of the dot-com bubble. Companies like PSINet were spending more on advertising than they actually had, while investors poured money into endeavors that were too big for their britches. It's like buying stock in the Raiders and John Gruden after a 3-0 start. When PSINet declared bankruptcy, their name came off the Ravens Stadium just a year after the team had dominated the rest of the NFL on their way to a blowout victory in Super Bowl 35, which we do not talk about here. The team sold the naming rights to M&T Bank, which has remained the name since 2003 and will at least until 2027, when the US dollar collapses and banks are no longer necessary as bottle caps become the new currency. Likely. From one recession to another, when the Mets finally moved out of iconic Shea Stadium after the 2008 season, they broke down and decided to sell the naming rights, settling on what should have been a safe bet: Citigroup, or Citi for short. At that time, the deal was the most lucrative in the history of naming rights, going for $20 million a year for 20 years. Just hold on, let's do the math here, and then vigorously checking my math, that's exactly $400 million. Wait, is that? Yeah, that's $400 million. The timing couldn't have been worse. If you can think back to when the stadium opened in the spring of 2009, the country was in the midst of the worst recession it had seen in 80 years. Like other banks, Citigroup received a massive government bailout funded by you and me, the taxpayers, to the tune of $45 billion, unless you're in Australia, but then you somehow funded it too. Our money given to banks like Citigroup, who had engaged in predatory housing loans. So to have the name Citi atop one of baseball's most recognizable stadiums was, and perhaps still is, a slap in the face to Americans who were rendered unemployed and lost self-defenestrated loved ones to the recession. The company considered ending the deal, but assured the public that no government funds were being used in the naming rights deal. I mean, how could they not have, though? Oh, we used that other money that we have, not that money. I guess that's possible. I mean, Bernie Madoff could have given them the money. And now for our final scam stadium naming rights deal. Higher education is always a scam. That much we know.
If you're an adult still giving money to your college is a $120,000 hooker, and you are an idiot who fell in love with her.
But when you strip away the campus life, the dorms, the sports, and the girls, the scam is all the more apparent, hiding in plain sight. Such is the case for the University of Phoenix, a private, for-profit online university whose name once adorned the Arizona Cardinals' home stadium. The University of Phoenix and the Cardinals agreed to a 20-year deal worth over $150 million in 2006 when the stadium opened. It didn't make a ton of sense from the get-go. Despite being named after the city of Phoenix, Arizona's new state-of-the-art dome was located in Glendale. And nobody wants to go to the University of Glendale, whether it's online or not. An investigation by the U.S. Senate committee found that the University of Phoenix spent 3 times more on their marketing than they did on education for their students. The committee also found that the University of Phoenix has a higher dropout rate than the typical community college, and the number of student loan defaults is, believe it or not, higher than the graduation rate. Eventually, well before the 20-year deal expired, the University of Phoenix ran into financial woes, laying off over 900 employees, shutting down 100 campuses, and removing their name from the Cardinal Stadium, making way for Jake and State Farm to slide in and grab those rights. We just tend to forget this happened because not much of the coloring has changed at the stadium since the name change. College is about the experience, also a little bit of learning, but mostly the experience of making out with a stranger at a house party. Without the extracurriculars, the University of Phoenix was a lackluster mode of higher education, and certainly not worthy of having its name on one of the NFL's mighty cathedrals. Though, John Gruden was a coach. Such irony that an online school without a team that was a scam hosted games from schools that are a scam or have run scams. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more interesting vids on sports. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you made it to my next video.